There comes a moment in a man's life when he stops trying to impress the world and begins to inhabit himself. And something fascinating happens then. He becomes more attractive, not less. Attraction isn't merely the province of youth, it's the language of presence, of depth, of a certain elegant self-knowledge that only time can teach. And while the world glorifies speed, instant chemistry, and the exuberance of the young, there is a quieter, more intriguing current that pulls people toward men who have lived long enough to understand themselves. The quiet confidence older men carry is more magnetic than loud charm because it is rooted in something far more compelling than performance. It is rooted in self-acceptance. When a man reaches a stage in life where he no longer feels pressured to prove himself, compete with every other man in the room, or chase validation, he begins to radiate a different kind of presence. This presence is steady, grounded, and unmistakably felt. Unlike youthful bravado, which often relies on exaggeration or the need to be seen, quiet confidence is subtle. It is the calm awareness of one's strengths, the comfort with one's flaws, and the understanding that approval is optional rather than essential. Women can sense this immediately because it shifts the entire dynamic of interaction. Instead of trying to impress, he simply exists with intention, and that alone becomes inviting. Quiet confidence also signals emotional maturity, and emotional maturity is deeply attractive. A man who is not easily rattled, who doesn't respond to pressure with insecurity or defensiveness, creates a sense of safety and ease. He listens without rushing to fix, speaks without needing to dominate the conversation, and responds with clarity rather than impulse. This steadiness becomes a kind of emotional gravity. It draws people in because it feels reliable, consistent, and genuine. In a world increasingly filled with noise, opinions, and performative charm, the man who is composed and self-assured without being boastful stands out effortlessly. His confidence is not a mask, it's a reflection of the work he has done within himself. Another layer to this magnetism is the way quiet confidence alters the energy of connection. When a man is not preoccupied with how he is perceived, he is free to be fully present. And presence is one of the rarest and most alluring qualities a person can offer. It allows him to make eye contact that feels sincere rather than strategic, to hold conversations that carry depth rather than surface-level chatter, and to create interactions that feel meaningful rather than transactional. A woman feels as though she has his full attention, not because he is trying to win her over, but because he values the moment for what it is. This kind of attention leaves an imprint. Quiet confidence also suggests a man has survived enough life experiences to trust himself. He has faced challenges, failures, and transitions that have carved out resilience. This resilience shows up in the way he handles conflict, in the humor he brings to uncomfortable truths, and in the grace with which he navigates uncertainty. It's attractive not because it is loud, but because it is unmistakably earned. Emotional steadiness becomes an anchor in a chaotic, hyperstimulated world because it offers something people rarely experience today, a sense of grounding. When an older man has lived long enough to understand his own emotional rhythms, triggers, and patterns, he no longer gets swept up by every passing feeling or external pressure. Instead of reacting impulsively, he responds with intention. Instead of escalating tension, he diffuses it with calm clarity. This kind of steadiness is not the absence of emotion, it is the mastery of it. And mastery creates a presence that feels safe, warm, and trustworthy. Women often describe this as a man who feels centering, someone whose energy makes everything around him feel less overwhelming. His emotional steadiness becomes a quiet refuge in a world where everything is loud. This steadiness is attractive because it communicates self-awareness. A man who understands himself emotionally also understands boundaries, communication, and empathy. He knows when to step forward and when to give space. He knows how to articulate what he feels without collapsing into frustration or shutting down. He has learned through experience that emotional outbursts rarely solve anything, and that measured expression builds deeper connection. This kind of emotional maturity signals that he is reliable not just in good moments, but in difficult ones. Women intuitively pick up on this, recognizing that this is someone who won't disappear at the first sign of conflict, someone who won't crumble under stress, and someone who doesn't make his turmoil the responsibility of others. Another layer of attraction comes from the emotional predictability that older men often bring. Predictability does not mean monotony, It means emotional consistency. It means you know the person you're dealing with today will be the same person you encounter tomorrow, because he isn't driven by ego swings or unprocessed insecurities. This consistency builds trust, and trust is one of the deepest forms of attraction. When a woman feels she can emotionally relax around a man, her guard softens, her openness expands, and her curiosity grows. She feels invited into connection instead of challenged by instability. Emotional steadiness also reflects a kind of wisdom that comes only from living through the highs and lows of life. Older men have experienced enough to understand that storms pass, that challenges are temporary, and that reactions are choices. This perspective influences the way they approach disagreements, discomfort, and vulnerability. They handle it with a calm that feels refreshing. They don't take everything personally, they don't catastrophize small setbacks, and they don't allow fleeting emotions to dictate the tone of a relationship. This wisdom becomes deeply magnetic because it reassures women that the emotional landscape will be navigated with respect and maturity. Life experience cultivates a depth that invites curiosity instead of competition because it transforms a man from someone who seeks validation into someone who embodies perspective. Over time, older men gather stories, lessons, and insights from the chapters they've lived, successes they celebrated, mistakes they learned from, heartbreaks that reshaped them, and transitions that demanded growth. This accumulation of lived experience creates a dimension within them that can't be faked or rushed. It becomes evident in the way they speak, in the pauses they take before responding, in the nuances of their observations, and in the gentle confidence with which they share their truths. Women are often drawn to this depth because it feels like engaging with someone who has substance, someone who isn't relying on surface-level charm to connect. Instead of competing for attention or validation, older men offer conversations that feel textured, thoughtful, and profoundly human. This depth shifts the dynamic of attraction in a powerful way. With older men, interactions don't feel like a performance or a negotiation. There is no rush to impress, no frantic attempt to fill silence, no need to assert dominance. Instead, there is a natural rhythm, slower, more intentional, more grounded. This creates space for curiosity to bloom. A woman doesn't just see a man, she sees a story. She wants to know what shaped him, what he has come to believe, what he has learned to release, and what he still holds close. Depth invites exploration because it hints at layers beneath the surface. It signals that there is more to discover, more to understand, and more to feel. This sense of mystery is not the result of playing games, it is the result of having lived. Older men also tend to ask better questions, not because they are trying to impress, but because they are genuinely interested. Their curiosity is shaped by experience, they know the value of truly understanding another person. This makes conversations feel intimate, not simply informative. Instead of competing to be heard or admired, they create an atmosphere of shared discovery. This emotional spaciousness is incredibly attractive because it makes a woman feel valued for who she is, not for what she can provide. It transforms connection into a dialogue rather than a performance. Depth also leads to a kind of resilience that softens the way older men approach relationships. They have weathered enough storms to understand imperfection, both in themselves and in others. They know that people are complex, that emotions are layered, and that relationships require patience. This understanding makes them less reactive, less judgmental, and more accepting of human nuances. Instead of competing to win or dominate, they connect to understand. This shift from competition to curiosity creates a magnetic energy that feels mature, inviting, and unmistakably compelling. A refined sense of self creates an effortless authenticity that younger men often chase because it emerges from years of reflection, trial, and self-correction. By the time a man reaches a certain stage in life, he has begun to shed the layers he once wore to fit in, impress, or conform. He no longer molds himself to the expectations of others or adjusts his personality depending on the room he enters. Instead, he stands firmly in who he is, aware of his strengths and equally aware of his limitations. This grounded self-awareness becomes deeply attractive because authenticity is rare. Women are drawn to men who do not perform, who do not hide behind facades, who do not need to play roles to feel valued. This honesty in presence creates a sense of trust immediately and makes interactions feel real rather than rehearsed. This refined sense of self also changes the way older men communicate. They speak with clarity because they have learned the cost of pretending and the value of truth. They choose their words with intention, not to manipulate or to seek approval, but to express what is true for them. They don't inflate their achievements or mask their insecurities, they simply present themselves as they are. This level of self-acceptance becomes magnetic because it signals emotional maturity and a deep understanding of one's identity. Younger men, still in the process of discovering themselves, often feel compelled to project an image. Older men, having outgrown that phase, find comfort in living without pretense. Their authenticity becomes a quiet but powerful form of confidence that attracts without effort. Another aspect of this attraction lies in the freedom older men embody. They no longer feel bound by the competitive energy that often defines younger masculinity. They don't need to prove they are the smartest, the strongest, or the most successful man in the room. Their self-worth is internal rather than dependent on external validation. This internal grounding brings a calm presence that makes women feel at ease. There is no pressure to impress them, no sense of being evaluated, no tension that comes from insecurity. Instead, there is a relaxed, open energy that invites honest connection. It creates space for genuine conversation, shared vulnerability, and deeper understanding. A refined sense of self also influences how older men navigate attraction itself. They are comfortable expressing interest without desperation and receiving attention without arrogance. They have learned to appreciate connection rather than chase it. This creates an alluring balance, confident yet humble, self-assured yet approachable. Women feel drawn to this balance because it signals emotional stability and relational readiness. It reflects a man who knows who he is and no longer seeks completeness from someone else, but connection built on mutual authenticity. The ability to slow down, observe, and connect gives older men an unexpected advantage in attraction because it contrasts so sharply with the fast-paced, distracted nature of modern interactions. In a world dominated by urgency, instant replies, and superficial exchanges, a man who moves with intention stands out. Older men often bring a different rhythm to connection. They've learned that meaningful moments rarely happen in haste, and deep understanding requires presence rather than speed. This ability to slow down is not laziness, it is awareness. It is the recognition that real connection unfolds in the spaces between words, in the pauses where someone feels truly heard, and in the unspoken signals that shape intimacy long before physical closeness ever enters the picture. Women naturally respond to this pacing because it feels intimate, personal, and safe. Observing is another powerful element of this trait. Older men have lived long enough to understand human behavior, not from theory but from experience. They notice details, tones, moods, shifts in energy that younger men often overlook. This attentiveness is attractive because it communicates interest without pressure. It tells a woman she doesn't need to shout her needs or mask her feelings. He pays attention in a way that feels respectful rather than intrusive. He notices when she lights up, when she withdraws slightly, when something matters to her even if she doesn't say it outright. This kind of observation creates a sense of emotional intimacy that feels both rare and profoundly comforting. Connection deepens when a man brings both presence and observation into the moment. Older men understand that connection is not about dazzling someone but about meeting them where they are. They aren't racing ahead in conversations or waiting for their turn to speak, they're engaging with genuine curiosity. They ask thoughtful questions and offer insights shaped by real experience. They allow silence without discomfort, recognizing that silence often reveals more than words. This creates a feeling of ease and openness that becomes a powerful foundation for attraction. Younger men often chase intensity, quick chemistry, dramatic sparks, immediate validation. Older men focus on quality. They understand that the most meaningful connections are built slowly, with patience and sincerity. Their ability to slow down the pace of interaction makes a woman feel seen, valued, and appreciated for who she is rather than for what she represents in a moment of excitement. This creates a gravitational pull that is subtle but strong. It's the kind of attraction that grows steadily rather than exploding suddenly. It invites depth instead of drama, stability instead of unpredictability, and presence instead of performance. This way of connecting becomes magnetic not because it tries to impress, but because it honors the human experience in its most authentic form.